As well, I don't know the other one.
On the morning of February 27th, 2024, at approximately 8 a.m., 17-year-old Camary Childress arrived for her shift at the CVS pharmacy on William Street in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Surveillance footage shows her pulling into the parking lot and stepping out her car. Parked nearby was a red four-door vehicle. Inside were three individuals. One of them was her ex-boyfriend, 20-year-old Camary Jones. Moments later, the footage captures a verbal exchange. Camary attempted to leave. As she moved away from the scene, multiple gunshots were fired. She ran across the parking lot, but was struck and collapsed. A 53-year-old man, uninvolved in the situation, was also shot while standing nearby. Police responded quickly. The area was secured. Investigators recovered shell casings, surveillance recordings, and eyewitness accounts. The red vehicle fled, but was later traced. Within days, 3 suspects were arrested. Camary Jones was charged with first-degree murder, unlawful use of weapon, assault, and armed criminal action. Yannick Kane was charged with tampering with physical evidence after returning to the scene to retrieve a cell phone from Camary's vehicle. A third individual, Zamia Smith, was charged with hindering prosecution and resisting arrest.
Good afternoon. The 3 people charged in a deadly shooting that killed a 17-year-old girl and injured a man appear in Cape Girardeau court this morning in Cape Girardeau County. Camary Jones has been charged with first-degree murder, among other charges. Yannick Kane was charged with tampering with physical evidence. Zamia Smith was charged with hindering prosecution and resisting a lawful stop. All 3 being held without bond. Now, they appeared in court at 10:30 this morning for their arraignments. We do have a crew in the courtroom, so look for more about what happened in the proceeding later on Heartland News. But that shooting took the life of this woman, 17-year-old Camary Childress, who was working as a pharmacy tech at CVS when the shooting happened. The CVS in Cape released this statement saying that they are devastated to learn of Childress's death. CVS says that Childress was a bright young woman who cared for her patients. The company says that they have been in touch with the family and their thoughts and prayers are with them at this time.
Digital forensic analysis revealed deleted messages, screenshots, and location data. Evidence showed that Jones had been monitoring Camary's social media activity in the days prior to the shooting. Investigators identified a pattern of digital surveillance, possessive behavior, and threats. Camary had recently posted about a new relationship. There were no prior police reports or restraining orders. Jones now awaits trial. Prosecutors are expected to present video footage, digital communications, and witness testimony to argue premeditation. The defense may claim emotional distress. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Camary Childress was born and raised in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, a small city along the Mississippi River. She lived with her mother and younger siblings in a residential neighborhood not far from schools, retail centers, and local community hubs. Her family described their living arrangement as close-knit. Camary took on a leadership role at home, often helping her mother care for her younger siblings. As a child, Camary was involved in local youth programs and after-school activities. She was active in church functions and attended Sunday services regularly with her family. Those who knew her from early childhood describe her as engaged and well-mannered, with a strong sense of responsibility. Teachers noted her consistent attendance and willingness to participate in group activities. From a young age, Camary displayed an interest in helping others. She volunteered in local food drives and community cleanup efforts. At school, she was known for taking initiative and mentoring younger students. Camary attended Central Senior High School in Cape Girardeau. Academically, she was considered above average. She expressed particular interest in science and health courses and was enrolled in elective classes that aligned with a career in the medical field. Her teachers identified her as focused and career-oriented, with a long-term goal of entering the healthcare industry. Her friends describe her as determined and goal-driven. On social media, she maintained active accounts where she frequently posted about her daily life, work goals, and personal reflections. Her online presence was expressive and emotionally transparent, ranging from motivational quotes to subtle posts about relationships and trust. By age 16, Camary was working part-time at a CVS pharmacy on William Street in Cape Girardeau. She had been hired as a pharmacy technician, a rare position for someone her age, through a school-to-work transition program. She was well-liked by co-workers, some of whom mentored her as she adjusted to the responsibilities of handling prescriptions and customer interactions. According to store management, Camary consistently arrived on time and was trusted with high-responsibility tasks. Camary had a close circle of friends, mostly peers from school and work. These friends describe her as someone they could trust with personal matters. She was often the first person others turned to during conflict or emotional distress. According to classmates and co-workers, Camary was generally upbeat, but they noticed a gradual shift in her demeanor in the weeks leading up to her death. Her romantic history was limited, but included a serious relationship with Trey Marion Jones, a 20-year-old male from the same community. Their relationship began while Camary was still in high school. Friends reported that the relationship was initially affectionate, but later became emotionally volatile. In the weeks leading up to her death, Camary's social media tone shifted. Posts became more cryptic, featuring references to betrayal, pressure, and emotional strain. Friends reported a visible change in her mental state. She was more withdrawn, cautious, and at times appeared anxious at work. At the time of the incident, Trey Marion Jones was 20 years old. He was a local resident with previous contact with law enforcement, though public records are limited in scope. He did not attend the same high school as Camary, but was known within her social circle. How they initially met is unclear, but their relationship began several months prior to the murder. Multiple accounts from Camary's friends suggest that Jones exerted emotional control during their relationship. He would reportedly demand access to her phone, interrogate her about other male friends, and question her whereabouts. Friends also recall instances where he showed up uninvited to her workplace or outside her home. There were rumors of verbal altercations between them, though no official restraining order or police report had been filed by Camary. Friends suspected the relationship had a power imbalance. Jones was older, and according to them, he had a reputation for being controlling and jealous. The timeline of their breakup is estimated to have occurred in late January 2024, about 1 month before the fatal shooting. After the breakup, Camary began posting more confidently on social media, quotes about freedom, strength, and moving forward. Some posts included subtle romantic innuendos, suggesting she was involved with someone new. Screenshots later recovered by investigators showed confrontational messages from Jones. In one exchange, he demanded to know who she had been with. Friends stated that he confronted her at least once in person, allegedly outside the CVS where she worked, causing her to feel watched. Mutual friends grew concerned and warned Camary to be cautious. One friend reportedly advised her not to post about her personal life publicly, citing Jones's behavior. Despite this, Camary continued sharing updates, perhaps unaware of the potential danger. In the 2 weeks before the incident, Camary's posts became increasingly layered with hidden meaning. While some were celebratory, indicating new beginnings, others included subtle language suggesting stress or unease. Phrases like, "tired of looking over my shoulder," and "people will watch you just to see you fall" were posted and shared. There were also suggestive photos and captions referencing a new romantic interest. None of the posts explicitly mentioned Jones, but peers believe he was following her content closely. Investigators later determined that Jones had access to her stories and had sent messages in reaction to them. Some posts were reportedly deleted within hours of being published, suggesting that Camary may have had second thoughts about being so public. These deleted posts were partially recovered during the digital forensic analysis conducted after her death. On the morning of Tuesday, February 27, 2024, 17-year-old Camary Childress began her usual routine in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. She prepared for work as a pharmacy technician at the CVS pharmacy located on William Street. According to phone location data and corroborated by surveillance footage, she left her home and drove directly to the store. At approximately 7:55 a.m., a red Dodge Avenger began circling the parking lot of the CVS. The vehicle was later identified by investigators as being operated by Trey Marion Jones, Camary's ex-boyfriend. Video evidence shows the car arriving before Camary. Inside were at least 3 individuals, Jones, Yannick Kane, and Zamia Smith. At 8:01 a.m., Camary arrived in her own vehicle and parked near the pharmacy entrance. She exited her car at 8:03 a.m. and began walking toward the building. This moment marks the beginning of a fatal encounter recorded from multiple surveillance angles. Surveillance footage from the store and adjacent buildings shows Camary approaching the CVS, while Jones's vehicle remained parked across the lot. At 8:04 a.m., Jones and at least one other occupant of the red vehicle exited the car and approached her. A verbal confrontation ensued. Witnesses later described a heated exchange. No audio is available from the cameras, but visual cues showed aggressive gestures and confrontational body language. The altercation lasted less than 2 minutes. Camary turned away, walked back toward her car, and got inside. At that moment, Jones returned to the red vehicle briefly. Then, at approximately 8:06 a.m., he emerged once more, this time armed with a handgun. Video footage shows Jones raising the firearm in Camary's direction as she was reversing her vehicle. Camary abruptly exited her car and attempted to flee on foot through the parking lot toward the side of the building. Jones discharged multiple rounds. The surveillance shows Camary being struck mid-run. She collapsed near the edge of the property. Witnesses described the sound of gunfire followed by screams and people taking cover. A secondary victim, a 53-year-old male construction worker who had been working nearby, was also hit by a stray bullet. He was struck in the hip while walking toward the store and fell to the ground. Jones returned to the red vehicle, which then fled the scene at high speed. The exact number of shots fired was later confirmed to be at least 5, based on shell casings recovered on scene. At 8:07 a.m., multiple 911 calls were placed by CVS employees, nearby pedestrians, and drivers. First responders arrived within minutes and secured the area. Emergency medical personnel assessed both victims. Camary Childress was pronounced dead at the scene from a gunshot wound to the upper body. The 53-year-old man was transported to a nearby hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Law enforcement cordoned off the parking lot and began immediate evidence collection. CVS was closed for the remainder of the day, with police interviewing all available witnesses. Authorities obtained surveillance video from multiple angles, including cameras mounted on the CVS storefront, interior cameras facing the parking lot, and neighboring buildings. The footage clearly documented the red Dodge Avenger entering the lot before Camary. The confrontation between Jones and Camary, Jones drawing a firearm and shooting as Camary fled. The red vehicle fleeing the scene after the shooting. Investigators were able to identify the license plate and visually confirm the identities of the occupants through video stills. Crime scene investigators recovered 5 9mm shell casings near the location where Jones had fired. These casings were consistent with a semi-automatic handgun. A blood trail marked Camary's attempted flight from the scene. Blood pattern analysis confirmed she had been struck while running. A firearm matching the type used in the shooting was later recovered from a residence connected to Jones. Fingerprint and gunshot residue tests were conducted. Jones's fingerprints were also found inside the red vehicle, which was located and impounded by authorities within 48 hours. Cell phone records obtained through warrant showed communications between Camary and Jones in the days prior to the shooting. Deleted text messages, retrieved from cloud backups, revealed threats and hostile exchanges. Phone tower pings placed Jones near the CVS in the early morning hours. Kane and Smith's phones also pinged in the same vicinity. Social media activity, including posts made by Camary about her new relationship, were reviewed by police. Investigators believe these posts may have contributed to the escalation. Jones's own online activity included several cryptic or emotionally charged posts in the days leading up to murder. Following the shooting, Kane was captured on surveillance video returning to the crime scene after police had secured the area. At approximately 9:15 a.m., she was seen retrieving a cell phone from the driver's side of Camary's vehicle. Investigators allege this act constituted tampering with physical evidence. Cain was arrested days later and charged accordingly. During interviews, she declined to provide a motive, but prosecutors believe the action was an attempt to remove incriminating evidence linked to Jones. Cain later entered a guilty plea and was sentenced to 15 years in prison, 11 years for tamper with evidence, plus 4 additional years for probation violations on a separate case. Smith, identified as a third person in the red vehicle, attempted to evade arrest by fleeing during a police pursuit. He was apprehended and charged with hindering prosecution and resisting arrest. His role in the shooting was evaluated based on witness statements and video analysis. While there is no evidence that he discharged a weapon, authorities believe he was aware of the plan and knowingly assisted Jones before and after the shooting. Smith later accepted a plea deal. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison with credit for time served. The investigation relied heavily on surveillance footage from the CVS parking lot and surrounding businesses. Investigators matched GPS data from cell towers with video timestamps, confirming their presence at the crime scene during the time of the shooting. Witnesses on site further identified Jones and provided consistent descriptions of his movements and physical appearance. Anonymous tips received through a local crime reporting platform helped authorities locate the red vehicle involved in the shooting and eventually led to the arrests. Trey Marion Jones was arrested and charged with multiple serious offenses. First-degree murder for the shooting death of Camary Childress, 3 counts of armed criminal action, unlawful use of a weapon, first-degree assault in connection with the wounding of a second victim, a 53-year-old man caught in the crossfire, resisting arrest during his apprehension.
The man accused of killing Camary Childress is expected to be back in court next week. A counsel status hearing for 20-year-old Trey Marion Jones is scheduled for Thursday, March 7th. He made his first court appearance before a judge on Thursday, where he waived his right to a formal arraignment. Jones is charged with first-degree murder and 6 other felonies. He has pleaded not guilty. Jones could be sentenced to life in prison if convicted.
Yannick Cain faced 2 separate sets of charges: felony tampering with physical evidence for returning to the scene and removing items from a victim's vicinity after law enforcement had taken control of the area, a probation violation from an unrelated case, which enhanced sentencing possibilities. Zamia Smith was charged with hindering prosecution for allegedly helping Jones evade police immediately following the shooting, resisting arrest when approached by law enforcement. In the months following the arrests, all 3 suspects appeared in court for arraignment and pretrial hearings.
Good afternoon. The 3 people charged in a deadly shooting that killed a 17-year-old girl and injured a man appear in Cape Girardeau court this morning in Cape Girardeau County. Trey Marion Jones has been charged with first-degree murder, among other charges. Yannick Cain was charged with tampering with physical evidence. Jameis Smith was charged with hindering prosecution and resisting a lawful stop, all 3 being held without bond. Now, they appeared in court at 10:30 this morning for their arraignments. We do have a crew in the courtroom, so look for more about what happened in the proceeding later on Heartland News. But that shooting took the life of this woman, 17-year-old Camary Childress, who was working as a pharmacy tech at CVS when the shooting happened. The CVS in Cape released this statement saying that they are devastated to learn of Childress's death. CVS says that Childress was a bright young woman who cared for her patients. The company says that they have been in touch with the family and their thoughts and prayers are with them at this time.
Trey Marion Jones entered a plea of not guilty to all charges at his initial appearance. The court denied bail due to severity of the crime and the risk of flight. Legal debate ensued regarding Jones's representation. Initially assigned a public defender, his legal team later shifted towards seeking private counsel. The court granted continuances to accommodate changes in legal representation. Jones's defense team filed motions to suppress the CVS surveillance footage, arguing it had been obtained without proper chain of custody documentation. Prosecutors countered with time-stamped metadata and technician affidavits, proving the footage's authenticity and relevance. The suppression hearing was held over 2 days, and the court ruled that the video evidence was admissible for trial. Yannick Cain appeared in court and accepted a plea deal before going to trial. The prosecution offered a combined sentence in exchange for a guilty plea to evidence tampering and acknowledgement of the probation violation. Kane accepted the deal. Zamia Smith also entered a guilty plea. Court transcripts indicate his legal team negotiated credit for time served in exchange for cooperation with investigators and acceptance of charges related to resisting arrest and obstruction. On June 24, 2024, Unique Kane was sentenced to 15 years total, 11 years for tamper with evidence, and 4 years for violating terms of prior probation. Both sentences are to be served consecutively. Zamia Smith received a 4-year sentence, with credit for 337 days served. The remainder of the sentence may be served under supervised release, depending on parole board decisions. Trey Marion Jones is scheduled for trial from September 22nd to September 25th, 2025, in Cape Girardeau County Circuit Court. The prosecution plans to present video surveillance, phone metadata, physical evidence including shell casings, and testimonies from eyewitnesses and responding officers. The trial is expected to last 4 days. If convicted of first-degree murder, Jones faces a potential life sentence without the possibility of parole. Prosecutors have not sought the death penalty. The trial is expected to draw significant media attention and public observation due to the circumstances of the case and the age of the victim. Camary's death triggered a wave of local mourning. On March 5, 2024, what would have been her 18th birthday, family and friends organized a balloon release at Cape County Park South. The event included prayers, a moment of silence, and community reflections. News media were present to cover the memorial. On February 27, 2025, a 1-year anniversary memorial was held at the same CVS location where she was killed. Dozens gathered, releasing smiley-face balloons in her memory. Her family, classmates, co-workers, and community members gave brief public statements. Law enforcement and city leaders also attended the ceremony. The incident generated widespread discussion on social media. The hashtag Justice for Camary began trending regionally, with thousands calling for accountability and transparency in the investigation. Online forums and local media channels were filled with commentary about the risks of teen dating violence and the need for legislative reform. Multiple local advocacy groups used Camary's case to highlight flaws in how stalking, harassment, and threats from ex-partners are handled, especially involving teenage victims. The response also prompted local officials to call for a review of workplace safety policies. Advocates pointed out that many teenagers do not recognize early signs of partner violence. National statistics suggest 1 in 3 teens in the U.S. experience some form of dating abuse, but few report it. It remains unclear whether Camary was aware of available resources or whether she reached out for help prior to the shooting. Missouri law allows minors to seek protective orders, but the process can be difficult without adult support or legal guidance. The CVS where Camary worked did not have on-site security, and the parking lot had no visible surveillance staff. Questions were raised about whether employers should be responsible for flagging suspected threats to employees, especially when threats originate from known individuals. Recommendations were made to enhance employee safety measures during shift changes. There were no public records of previous complaints made by Camary against Jones. However, police confirmed that Jones had been involved in prior low-level offenses not related to this case. Advocates argue that more should be done to connect behavioral patterns across jurisdictions and ensure early intervention when individuals begin displaying violent or stalking behavior. The murder of Camary Childress raises serious questions about prevention and early intervention in cases of teen dating violence. Several warning signs were reportedly present in the weeks leading up to her death. According to statements obtained during the investigation, multiple friends noticed a visible change in Camary's demeanor after she ended her relationship with Trey Marion Jones. These included increased anxiety, emotional withdrawal, and comments suggesting she felt she was being watched or followed. She reportedly told a co-worker she was uncomfortable with how her ex-boyfriend was always nearby or showing up without notice. School officials and faculty who were later questioned stated that while no formal complaint had been filed, Camary had requested to be seated away from a certain group of students during lunch periods. Friends stated that she began asking for rides more often, even when she had her own transportation, which may have been a subtle effort to avoid being followed. One close friend claimed she had once considered filing a report but decided against it because she didn't think anyone would take it seriously. These overlooked or unreported red flags underscore the failure to assess risk in teen relationships. A structured safety assessment could have helped identify escalating threats. If earlier action had been taken, whether by families, school counselors, or law enforcement, the outcome might have been different. Social media played a significant role in escalating tensions. After the breakup, Camary reportedly posted multiple times about a fresh start and hinted at a new relationship. While her post did not name Jones directly, he interpreted them as targeted or provocative. Investigators later recovered messages from Jones's social accounts that suggest obsessive behavior. These included frequent monitoring of Camary's stories and posts, late-night messages sent to mutual friends about her activities, and screenshots of her comments and likes on others' pages. The frequency and tone of Jones's activity on platforms like Instagram and Snapchat indicated fixation. He allegedly created secondary accounts to view her content after being blocked. In a series of recovered private messages sent days before the murder, Jones expressed feeling disrespected and that she was playing games online. One message read, "She thinks it's funny. Watch what happens." Authorities determined that several social posts, especially those showing Camary in public with others, may have been perceived by Jones as taunts or indirect provocation. However, there was no evidence that Camary intentionally provoked Jones or expected retaliation. She did not report these messages, nor did she appear to recognize them as a sign of imminent threat. This reflects a broader trend in digital age violence, where social media becomes both a window and a weapon. Platforms amplify emotional reactions, blur boundaries between private and public life, and often leave victims more vulnerable to real-world harm. Camary's case also highlights the silence that often surrounds teen dating violence. Despite displaying behavioral changes and communicating concerns to peers, there is no record that she reported Jones to school administrators, police, or even her family in a formal way. Experts reviewing the case point to a common pattern. Teens tend to minimize threats in early relationships, internalize blame, or fear retaliation. Many simply do not have the tools or language to describe emotional abuse or stalking. Cape Girardeau School officials stated there was no specific training provided on relationship red flags, either to students or faculty, prior to this incident. While general bullying prevention programs were in place, they did not address romantic dynamics. After Camary's death, administrators acknowledged the gap and expressed plans to introduce awareness campaigns targeting early signs of possessive behavior and digital harassment. The reluctance to speak out, paired with a lack of institutional awareness, can allow dangerous patterns to escalate unchecked. Education and early intervention are essential, not just through law enforcement, but via community, school, and family involvement. As of the latest update, Trey Marion Jones is awaiting trial for first-degree murder and multiple related charges. His trial is scheduled for September 22nd to 25th, 2025, with a pre-trial hearing set for September 2nd. Prosecutors have confirmed their intent to pursue a strategy focused on premeditation. This will include video evidence from the CVS parking lot, digital records of threats and social media activity, and witness testimonies confirming prior harassment. The state's case is likely to emphasize that Jones waited in the CVS parking lot, approached Camary unprovoked, and opened fire as she attempted to flee. Clear indicators of calculated intent. Prosecutors will argue that Jones's actions followed weeks of stalking, obsessive behavior, and unreported digital threats, culminating in a fatal act of control. On the defense side, sources close to the proceedings have suggested that Jones may pursue a strategy based on emotional distress. There is speculation that his legal team could argue diminished responsibility due to mental health issues or heat of passion, attempting to reduce the charge to second-degree murder or manslaughter. Legal analysts note that this case may set a precedent in Missouri regarding teen relationship violence, particularly where social media plays a role in premeditated behavior. The trial's outcome could influence future prosecution strategies and lead to expanded definitions of digital stalking and harassment in legal statutes. Following Camary's death, her family established the Camary Foundation for Youth Empowerment, which aims to educate teens on identifying toxic relationships, navigating conflict, and advocating for personal safety. The foundation is also working with local schools to sponsor scholarships in Camary's name, particularly for students pursuing healthcare careers, an aspiration Camary herself once held. A memorial mural was painted outside her former school, and her birthday is now marked each year by a balloon release and candlelight vigil attended by classmates, educators, and community leaders. Her story has become a local symbol not only of tragedy but of transformation, a turning point for the city in how it confronts youth violence, domestic threats, and digital abuse. In the wake of Camary's death, Cape Girardeau city officials formed a gun violence task force. Their findings, submitted to City Council in early 2025, outlined several deficiencies in public safety infrastructure. As a result, the city has moved to adopt a real-time surveillance network and ShotSpotter gunshot detection systems in high-risk areas, including the CVS lot where the shooting occurred. Additionally, the city launched anonymous reporting apps for teens facing harassment or stalking, expanded neighborhood watch initiatives, and introduced new safety training protocols for local businesses. Perhaps most importantly, the Cape Girardeau School District began mandatory educational sessions on teen dating violence in all high schools. These include role-playing scenarios, warning sign identification, and digital safety practices, marking a significant cultural shift in how early relationships are approached in the classroom. This case, while devastating, has prompted systemic reflection and community-driven change. Camary Childress' death exposed vulnerabilities in how we understand and respond to teen abuse. But through new programs, legal actions, and the voices of those she left behind, her story continues to shape a safer, more aware future. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.